So let's make this completely interactive, number one, because I suspect there are people in this audience who know at least as much as I do, if not more. So that's number one. Feel free to interrupt at any time, call bullshit, etc. By definition, we're all inventing what all of us are doing, because that's what we do for a living. And if anyone thought what we're doing actually made sense, it wouldn't actually be fundable because it would already be done. So give yourself some comfort in that. So let me just get a sense of the audience. Who here is with a really powerful, successful commerce company? Don't have any of those yet. Okay. Who's here with a commerce company and knows commerce? Wow. Okay. Who here wants to be in a commerce company? Really? Why are you people here? The beer? You're a VC. You're done with your career. You've capped it. Okay, interesting. As we heard, I started about, believe it or not, almost 20 years ago. Before that, I worked at Warner and Viacom and Fox and MCI and PBS and a lot of places, so I had a wide range of stuff. And so as we talk about commerce, which we will, and what I'm talking about is both sides of the buy button. I wish I didn't have to hold two microphones. You've got to love technology. We're going to talk about both sides of the buy button because there's really very different things going on both sides. That's number one. But number two, commerce is so important because the internet, as best I can tell, is only made up of three things, and that's commerce, content, and communications. It's all the internet does. It does it miraculously. It wildly disrupts that which came before. And in a lot of ways, I think commerce is the least produced of that. Short of Amazon and a little bit of eBay, and obviously we're going to see Alibaba a lot more, there's not a lot of other commerce companies that have broken through and are wildly disruptive. And you know we haven't fully disrupted until the anchor stores and the malls go out of business, which my prediction is somewhere in early to mid 2017. You may have noticed yesterday that Eddie Lambert, who is the private equity guy who bought Sears, put $400 million of his own money into the company to survive through Christmas. That's Sears. He gave himself collateral of 25 pieces of his real estate at Sears. I'm waiting for the shareholders to figure this one out. In case Sears goes under, he ends up with 25 probably prime Sears locations. In any event, my own view is that the way we do commerce now is actually half-baked, and I include Amazon in that as well. And so now let me get into it, the official part. Both sides of the buy button. I start all my charts with a consumer at the top of it because none of this matters unless we're serving what people need. What people need or want, because maybe, I don't know, for guys, I don't think we need more than a couple of shirts and a pair of jeans, but I have found, because we're in the women's commerce business, that women need a lot more. And that's why we're focused on women's commerce at Keep. We're focused on women in their 20s and early 30s. There's lots of obviously different places where you can put your commerce energy, but if it's about giving people what they want, when they want it, at the right price, and now we're seeing with speedy delivery and good comparison shopping, so I get precisely what I want at the right price, and that's obviously where the power of the internet comes in, and it makes internet commerce, in my opinion, blow away bricks and mortar commerce that all have very restricted corpuses or collections of goods. So let's start with this side of the question.
Yeah, we saw that, for example, when they started doing guide stores, and I know you're talking about women, men clothing, but when they started doing guide stores, they went from doing $140 average sales to $300 average sales. And you can say that bricks and mortar is going away, but people seem to still like and want to see, hold, feel, touch what they're buying. And this is 10 years after Amazon started with, folks with GNC.
I'm going to regret letting you guys do questions because I'm never going to get my story told, but you're right. And that I think one of the fair rules of anything on the internet and anything in commerce is that there are no real rules. So Bonobos has set up their idea, which is basically showrooms where you can see the stuff so you can then feel comfortable buying it online. They really mean to sell the stuff. Actually, you can't buy it in the stores. You just go to try the stuff on. So we're seing hybrids. We're seeing Warby Parker open real stores. It saddens me that the pure e-com guys feel the need to open quote-unquote real stores. Birchbox is opening real stores. So there are hybrids. There's nothing pure, there's nothing absolute, so we have to be careful about that. But let me go back. So your point is well made. This side of the buy button, which is the demand creation side, and this side of the buy button is when we push it and what happens. And what I've found in the almost 2 years we've been doing Keep, and very quickly, Keep is crowdsourced commerce. We let people collect anything from anywhere on the internet and bring it into Keep. And 3 months ago, we introduced truly the only universal shopping cart where you can buy anything on the internet in a single transaction. So on this side, we're about discovery, and we changed the model by letting everybody collect what they want from anywhere. And then we use trending algorithms and community to bring the most interesting stuff for our audience to the top. And then 90 days ago, because the refer model is completely effed, which is the commission junction, link share, skim links, vig links world is broken. We can talk about that. So on this side, it's about getting someone an easy transaction and getting this stuff. Let me go back to the side I think that is most interesting, and it's what the public sees, and it's the demand creation side. And what are the flavors of commerce, and how are we creating demand on this side? So this side is I want to get something. I want something. So there's a bunch of models. One model is Amazon. It's been around for a while. It's a pretty interesting company. What's most interesting to me is Amazon takes advantage of one half of the internet. There is nothing brought into Amazon from the people. It's all done through conventional merchandising. They bring it into their warehouses. They present it. That's Amazon. They use half the internet. When we started about 20 years ago, we had the people create our content, and we used the internet to push it out. We used the input of the internet. We used the output of the internet. No one in commerce, I don't believe, has yet done that, which is why one of the reasons I got so excited about starting Keep is that because of my About experience 2 decades ago, it's like, oh my God, no one's using the input side of the internet. So over here, again, there's flavors. Amazon, great, we go there. Amazon's a type of a store. Amazon's own people will tell you Amazon's about spear phishing. You know what you want, you go to Amazon. No one has ever criticized Amazon for being delightful or interesting or entertaining. It is very productive. It is a great utility. You don't go to Amazon to wander around at all. You go because you know you want the Brother 503672 printer, and you're going to get a good deal, and they're going to deliver it well, and they're going to deliver it efficiently. And trust me, I'd rather be Jeff Bezos than me. So that's Amazon. It's actually a pretty conventional store that just because it ships anywhere, it can be big. So then we have a range of other models like Keep. So we're crowdsourced. We don't care what sells at all, which is interesting. We let the crowd do it. We're not merchant-oriented at all. We actually make our transactions, when I talk about this side, without the merchants being actual, they fulfill the orders, but they're not participants. So we don't care what sells. It's truly consumer-controlled. It's crowdsourced. My opinion is it takes real advantage of the internet. Then there's lots of other kinds of stores. We're seeing lots of individual stores like the Warby Parkers and the Birchboxes and the Bonobos that are serving segments. And the internet is a powerful distribution medium. So to have a pretty conventional store over here for people to go buy from and be somewhat disruptive. Eyeglasses on the internet felt disruptive at the time. Uber is a commerce company, so they're really functioning as a marketplace, and they make it over here. They make it easy for you to do things, easier than the other methods for it. So, in the shopping experience. But if you think about the hard goods, there's the stores like Saks and Bloomingdale's and Target, and they're all over here. They're not very internet-centric. Interestingly, the Wall Street Journal, actually the SEC called out almost all of commerce about a year ago because every one of the companies was reporting how awesome their sales were in e-commerce. We're up 27% over last year, and the SEC said you can't do that anymore. To a company, you actually have to report what your real numbers are as a percentage of your total sales, and what we discovered is that they were like 2 and 3% of total sales. So the legacy guys, in my opinion, are in trouble. The new guys are disruptive. Hopefully you guys will decide that commerce is a good thing because it's still underdeveloped. Believe it or not, the most powerful computer we all have is only 1% of commerce. All of the internet is 7% of commerce, and this is 12% of commerce. So there's a huge opportunity in front of us, obviously, to make e-commerce work a lot better. So again, on the discovery side are a bunch of conventional stores. And that would be Saks and Warby's and Amazon. Then we see two other categories. There's really one major category that has emerged. And that's the whole idea of content and commerce. So the first one is I want to buy something. The next one is I'm not sure I want to buy something, but I have eyeballs. So let's use the magazine industry. So all of the magazines have said, ad sales are hard. That's difficult for us. I know, let's go into commerce. So there's this, and the alliteration's great. Content and commerce sounds wonderful. Nobody, zero, has been successful with content and commerce. I'm a content guy. It's where I grew up. And I got into the commerce business and said, well, let's go do business with all these magazines because they have audience and they're talking at Vogue or In Style about, selling stuff. And I was sure it would work, and it doesn't. We did partnerships with a lot of magazines. And the most recent one was we saw Lucky merge with Beachment. I think it was Pando Daily, crapped all over it like the two boat anchors sink faster than one because they're two troubled companies. I don't know. But what I do know is the problem of content and commerce that we've discovered thinking about this is that there's a real difference between getting ready to maybe want to buy something and to actually make the purchase. And this is, I've come to this recently, and it's unfortunate, and I think hopefully someone will crack this. And this is actually the thought of the CEO of Zalando. Anyone in the room ever heard of Zalando? Yeah, so nobody knows who Zalando is. It's the biggest commerce company in Europe. They're in 14 countries. They're doing about $3 billion in revenue. They're going to IPO this year. It just shows how we in America think we own the world. They're a big deal. And what he said, which it's all his, and it was a really interesting idea, is that people wake up in the morning and they pick up a magazine or whatever, and they start to think about what is interesting, what might I buy? They're in no way ready to buy. Then around lunchtime, they start to share with their friends, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because they're with people. And then at night, they actually make the purchase. So the problem for the magazine is I'm reading the magazine and I'm getting an idea. All the September issues for you guys in the room, if you don't know this, are an inch thick. We actually made all the September issues shoppable. It's like 9 inches of magazines. And in the Keep model, since we can cover anything, we literally went in, a lot of hard work, to make them shoppable. And while those magazines give you ideas, you're not going to shop from them. There's just no shopping taking place, I'm sorry to say. From shop the story, and here's the merch, and stuff like that. Doesn't play. It just doesn't. So then we saw Twitter announce commerce last week. I'm really excited about that, but my gut says it doesn't work either because I didn't go to Twitter to buy the little black dress for Saturday night. I went to Twitter to tweet and get the news and use it as my kind of RSS feed for the New York Times or whatever. So maybe I'll buy, and I think Twitter talked about this, I'll buy tickets and t-shirts maybe, but I'm not gonna buy considered items, and I'm not in shopping mood. And so what I've learned, don't love it, is there's like shopping mood and like information consumption mood, and they don't overlap. They just don't. So again, this side's all about demand creation and variety of different stores and content and other things, and there's lots of models for it. Let's talk about this side, because you'd think once the transaction's done. So it's a little different over here. On this side, what's fascinated me when we went into business is there's a lot of diversity over here also. You think you push the button, you put your credit card in, and the stuff shows up, and that's done. And for the consumer, if I stand here, I will block the sun from you. Okay? Are you a VC by any chance? I'm not blocking the sun. This side is as varied as this side. Now, I think that these two variations is a really good thing, and then we can talk a little bit about, maybe brainstorm together about how the two come together. Here's what's fascinating about this side to me. And I think about mobile, because mobile is the future. 70% of, we started as a desktop company 2 years ago, and now we're a mobile company where 70% of our stuff's on mobile, 90% of it's on iOS versus Android. There are reasons for that, just because iPhones cost more, and we're serving a slightly upper scale market. So you push the buy button. You've now made the decision. Well, interestingly, before you push the buy button, I'm sure there are a bunch of people who know what the abandoned cart rate is in America. Who wants to throw out this really disgraceful number? Who got it? Who wants it? 63% of carts are full of abandoned items. 63%. So we suck. Imagine going to the supermarket and 63% of what you put in the cart, you get to the counter and you go, I don't really want it. You know, could you restock that cranberry juice for me? I decided I don't like cranberry juice. And that's what's happened. So we've got all these abandoned carts. I think there's a range of reasons we have. One is that people are using carts to hold on to stuff for later. One of the reasons we created Keep is, keep it if you're not ready to buy it. Do not put it in your cart. Because if you put something in your cart and you now have 3 things in your cart, you won't actually buy the one you want because your cart is a repository for the stuff you might want to buy. So we have to fix that. So now I hit the buy button and I want to buy the thing. Here's what gets interesting. The conventional approach is I have the goods in a warehouse. I put them in a box. I put it on the loading dock. FedEx shows up and they bring it to the guy's house. That's model number 1, and it's the obvious one. It's clearly what Amazon does in its core business. They have these huge warehouses in the pre-drone world. They pack it, and they send it to you, and it's a fantastic experience. They stock the goods. They take the risk of inventory. They own the goods. And it's kind of the way merchants have worked since the general store in the Western town. So it's like when you start businesses, I always look at the real world and see if you can duplicate it online. So good one, works, it's great. Then let me give you another model, and that's Zulily. So Zulily went public like $7 billion. These days it's worth about $4.5 billion. Zulily's model is what I call, I don't think the industry's got these terms yet, industrial dropship. So Zulily puts something up for sale. They sell 100 of them. They do not have it yet. They've cut deals with whoever the producer of that is and said, listen, hold 100 of those for me because I'm going to maybe sell them. If I don't want them. They sell the 100 of them. They get industrial drop ship it from the manufacturer. They repack it into a Zulily environment, and then a total of an average, I think it's 12 or 13 days later, the consumer gets it. One of the reasons I think Zulily has gone from 7 to 3.5 billion is that people have figured out this shit takes a long time to get here. Because that's their model. They take no risk. They have no inventory risk. They do own the item for a moment. They reship it so it's kind of packaged well. So that's a good thing. And it's an interesting model where they don't have inventory risk. That's the Zulily model. Then there's a model, I guess, like ours. Ours is consumer dropship. We don't touch the goods. We're actually an information company. That's my background. Don't touch the goods. The consumer buys it. This gets a little complicated. I'll get into financial systems in a minute. The consumer buys it. We tell Macy's. Macy's ships it to the consumer. We handle the communications with the consumer that says your item's coming. So we're actually functioning as a concierge of sorts. And that's a new, obviously, rage in the industry. We're lucky. We started doing this concept before as people helping people became big. Kind of the About model of 20 years ago, people helping people. Instacart, which just raised a $40 million round from Andreessen Horowitz, is regular people do your shopping for you and bring it to your house. So on the one hand, you can say, that is so stupid. On the other hand, you can say, well, that is so brilliant. Because rather than Peapod, which kind of went out of business, and Fresh Direct, which has low margins, it's like, well, I'll use the conventional grocery stores. I'll make margin by not taking advantage of coupons. I'll have regular people do it. I'll build a really good app on the front end, which says I want bananas, I want grapes, and stuff like that. Problem is, I said I wanted 2 bananas. I got 2 bunches of bananas when I used Instacart. So there's still some bugs to work out. But there's something about people helping people and using someone else's inventory and someone else's inventory risk is, I think, a really interesting model. And it's the one we use. We don't touch goods. We don't touch them. We don't have them in inventory, and we don't have any inventory risk because of it. So I'm fascinated by Fashion Week, just finished last Thursday, where everyone, it's not even quite fall yet, and the Fashion Week was about next spring. So it's like, it's like, are polka dots or flowers going to be in next spring? Beats the crap out of me. And that means that a lot of stuff is going to be poorly demand planned in that environment. So I'm lucky that all of these guys are doing conventional commerce, where they're going to order 20 gross of black polka dot whatever 9 months before they hit the stores. I don't care. So our model doesn't have any demand planning. So we're a consumer aggregator on this side. We delight consumers with whatever they want. We really demand plan on the spot. We can never have too much because I don't care what people buy. But on this side, there's a whole messy system of warehouses and shipping. So let's stay on this side. Mobile is only 1%. Part of the problem is that there's a really interesting thing. So we live in an app world on these things. The problem is two kinds of services don't do very well in apps. Interesting. So communications does great. WhatsApp and Snapchat and Instagram, those are great app services. Commerce doesn't do well on apps. The average person who has actually regularly uses 3 or 4 apps, they're not going to have Macy's and Bloomingdale's and Saks. They're just not going to have it. So that doesn't mean people don't want to buy stuff. So what's happened is that people are not using those apps, so those stores are using their regular websites, trying to use responsive design, which they actually suck at. Responsive design is good. A lot of you do it. For whatever reason, the commerce industry doesn't do it very well. So they don't get apps, their commerce sites are not very good. Checkout on mobile is horrible, even if you go all the way through it, going and digging out your wallet while you have your phone and you're on the subway platform, you're just not going to do it, which is why only 12% of all of the 7% of all of commerce is happening on mobile. So that's where we said, how do we make that simpler? And we came up with our universal cart. Give us your information once and then just go buy, 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 buy. Now, that means that we have some difficulty to do because our mission is to take the friction out for the consumer, and that means we take the friction. Our whole model is to take all the friction inside. So we do it over here on the demand side where the stores do not have to load into our commerce system because we go, let the consumer get the image, and then we go instantly scrape for availability, price, size, color, and content and bring that in and attach it to the image that the consumer brought, whereas most of the other systems are input systems where the merchant actually has to do the work to load up Alibaba, 11 Main, Alibaba's US business, OpenSky, really everybody is an input commerce model, and the merchant does the work. Too much friction, in my opinion. So it's get the friction out over here and get the friction out over here. So what we do is, and we've seen this, in our first week, we've been doing this now for 90 days, we'd had somebody, I assume they were like messing with us, but it's okay, was 23 items from 18 stores in one order. I assume it was a competitor or the press. We fulfilled it and it worked great. And you know what? I left the office, there was a dozen orders. People, our return shoppers are going, buy, 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 buy. It's that easy. And then what we do with a combination of technology and people, more technology every day, but a lot of people, it'll eventually be all tech, is our job is to get that stuff. And we go get it from the merchants, they ship it, we handle the communications, we're there by their side to handle the returns. So different kind of a model that takes advantage of everything. Now, the financial transaction gets interesting. I'll talk about Google Shopping Express. Who's used Google Shopping Express? Oh my God. Let me be an ad for Google Shopping Express. It is awesome. Now, it's partially awesome because there are two companies that do a double transaction. It's us and Google. So I like to see us mentioned in the same sentence, even if I have to do it. And that's that when you use Google Shopping Express, run home and get it. It's free delivery for 6 months. I I am their biggest abuser. I have just attested, I have bought salt, pepper, and ketchup from 3 different stores. So tried to get my orders down below $1.20, and Google delivers them. Google, the most efficient company in the world, actually has vans driving around, going to Target and Walgreens, getting the stuff, delivering it to my house. Free delivery for the first 6 months. Pay just the price. So like baking soda, I didn't know, baking soda is like $1.20. So I look for the cheapest things to test them. Google is the merchant of record, even though Target or Walgreens sits behind it. Google is what shows up on my credit card statement, even though I bought the paper towels from Target, and Google delivers it. Google does 8 stores. We do 300,000 stores. But we're both playing in that same world of convenience for the consumer. And I guarantee you, Google Shopping Express is the best for getting stuff like ketchup and salt and pepper. There's nothing better. You wouldn't buy a little black dress for Saturday night, I don't think, from either Google or Amazon, but we'll see. So there's a lot of stuff on this side, right? So Google's handling the transaction. It's easy. I go click, 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 buy, and I get the stuff, and it gets delivered. And that's really it. Lots of, and then you start to figure out, how do I put the two together, right? So over here, I can stock the goods and ship them myself and have demand planning issues and warehousing issues, or can I lower some of that friction? It is the freaking internet, for Christ's sake, and I believe what we're supposed to do is lower friction at every turn. So what can I do here that lowers the friction? What can I do on this side of the buy button that creates more interest and demand and excitement and delight? Again, because I don't have the conventional issues that existed in commerce before. So I'll leave you with one little story. I have a cousin who was in demand planning for years at Levi's, and his job was to figure out, he was like vice president demand planning, and I said, this is before I was in this, and I said, demand planning? Well, I didn't even know what it was. And it's like, his job was to figure out demand planning for Walmart and Target. And I said, okay, so that takes like 20 minutes. What do you do for the rest of the year? And he said, it's jeans, for Christ's sake. How could they be different one year to the next? He said, no, really. 501s in Walmart are different, and we have to figure out why. And it's everything from the weather of the previous year, how many were bought then versus how many. It's like, I don't want to go anywhere near that. That's the old way of doing commerce. So when I sell jeans, and we sell a lot of different jeans, I don't care where they come from. I don't care if they're 501s or whatever the consumer wants. And that's the power of the internet, and it's one of the key reasons that the legacy guys are screwed. Questions, thoughts, etc. Nothing? You have to call on people. Introduce yourself so everybody else knows who you are.
I'm Bob, founder and CEO of Lightworks, which we're talking about. On a Google model, how can they make money? Or would they ever make money?
The question is, on the Google model, how can they ever make money if they're delivering me salt for $1.20 and it's free delivery? That doesn't sound like a very good business. They do intend to charge me. I'm in my 6-month free period. So the question is, will I pay the $5 delivery charge for that? And they're making a bet. And for Google, what fascinates me is that Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon are actually the same company. I mean, they all want to be the same. They all want to be the everything internet company. So Google looks across at Amazon and goes, holy crap. How do we do this? So Google, instead of creating warehouses like Amazon did, how do we be more efficient? And their warehouse is the local Target store. Now, I believe, although Google denies it, that if they're successful, they'll put a warehouse in Queens, and they'll deliver their own salt. They'll buy their own salt and pepper. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I think that, we're testing. The fact that Google is testing like that, they do it in New York and San Francisco and a couple of other markets, means that we are still at the dawn of really interesting stuff. I don't know. So will they make money? It's anyone's guess. They have 8 stores in the system. You may have seen they included Barnes & Noble. That's their way to stick it to Amazon as best they can. Interesting, I'm sure we all look at Business Insider's chart of the day. If you don't, you should get it. Yesterday, it's like, oh my God, Amazon is Google's biggest advertiser by a mile. They spent $165 million on Google last year. So you got to spend money as an e-commerce company to get customers. Introduce yourself.
I'm Spencer Lazar, I work at General Catalyst. What do you think of the product fetch model and I guess in the US there's Shoptees and a number of others where they basically bring the longer tail inventory of boutiques online, which you can't get on Amazon or find in Macy's.
Yeah. So I do think it's interesting. I think it's a hybrid model. So what Farfetch is doing, Spring, which announced recently, is doing here in New York, is basically bringing on small merchants, not the major department stores, kind of the anti-department store. I think that they are functioning as the new kind of department store. So I think they're using the old model, which is department stores of 100 years ago, and saying, here's 50 brands. So for example, Spring's going to have 400 brands by year end, but that's like a third of the number of brands that Neiman Marcus has. So to me, it's a department store. Now, I think it's an interesting presentation. And they'll figure it out, or they won't. But I think that the model of empowering small brands is a good idea. Etsy, Etsy's a big seller on Keep because it's one of our bigger sellers. Etsy was a marketplace of very small merchants, if you will, and I think Farfetch is a model like that. And people like it a lot. They've done well. They've done well in Europe, and they're coming here. You an investor? Oh, okay.
Williams, and I'm a software engineer at Kurnit. I'm curious, how do you gain the trust of an older demographic in terms of e-commerce or just doing anything online? Because just with Venmo, I know so many college students who have it, but like even my parents are a little bit nervous of putting their information online.
They don't trust you. Well, John Malone, who was the king of the cable industry, still kind of a king of the cable industry, probably said it best. He said, "My worst customers are dying." So, no offense to your parents, they'll be gone before you will, and the next generation will be completely adoptive of all of this stuff. So that's one. Two is you have the ways you create trust is to delight the customers. At our place, it's interesting. Zappos has the best customer service anywhere, and our motto at our place is better than Zappos. It's interesting, we just did Net Promoter Score, our second run of Net Promoter Score, and as I left, we were at a 71, which is an off-the-charts number. And I can tell you, because I spent the weekend reading our outbound emails when we screw up, because you screw up in commerce, it's out of stock, especially when you don't stock it yourselves. You have to, one, delight the customer. The customer is always right, no matter what it costs. And I think it takes time. I mean, Venmo is one of those things, it's an acquired experience. I mean, you got to do it a little bit to understand why and what the benefit is. And frankly, older people don't really like to learn as much as younger people, or they're set in their ways. So I think you got to wait for them to die. Not your parents, but anybody else? Anybody want to call bullshit on something, please?
Good one. Just an independent answer, I guess. In terms of sort of your company versus Amazon or the other examples you talked about, how do you deal with issues of fulfillment where you don't carry the product yourself? How do you ensure that that's a smooth user experience?
So, in some ways, it can't be as smooth as the guy who carries it. The question is, how can we fulfill this smoothly? So, Amazon's in our system, so you can buy from us. I always play with our system, so I buy my Starbucks coffee through Keep, which buys it from Amazon. I could just take the elevator downstairs because there's a Starbucks in my building, but I like to test the system. So it's interesting, as I get a notification from Keep that my coffee is on its way. That means that Keep went and actually, at that time, purchased it from Amazon to ship to me, and actually, Keep is, no offense to Amazon, Keep is easier to buy from than Amazon is. It's really, it's like, they have one click, but it's not really. Whatever, try Keep, you'll see. Especially on a mobile device. So what we have to do is we have to bend over backwards because we don't carry the inventory to make sure it's in stock. And we have more out of stock issues because the stuff's always going. And ours is a scraping system. So on Amazon has APIs, so we see it instantly. Amazon and Etsy and Shopify have APIs. So we're actually as fast in their own systems as they are, I think. So we get it there. But we're constantly, one of the things we have as a core competency is to scrape the commerce web all the time. To make sure. And that's an interesting issue. And we end up with, we have these things where we do communicate with the customer. It's concierge service. We say, we're really sorry that item's out of stock, but here's two others that might be interesting for you. And I think one of the reasons that our Net Promoter Score is up this high, I hope it stays up there from this thing we're doing, is that we delight you even when we can't deliver as well as we'd like. But because there's fluky in all of e-commerce. We've all had it happen. I don't know if you know. I mean, I put stuff in my Amazon cart and then it says out of stock when it's in my cart. There's a lot of stores, unfortunately, that actually don't check their stock, their warehousing system until it's in the cart. Terrible experience. But e-commerce is actually still very Web 1.0. There's no APIs to speak of in the e-commerce industry, which is why we have to scrape. I would love APIs and someday we'll get them, but most of the stores don't have them. You spoke.
Hi. What about delivery? Is that whatever the merchant is going to give? So if I'm getting Amazon, I'm a Prime customer on Amazon. Do I still get my 2 days delivery if I buy some news?
So interestingly, we've been playing with the Amazon Prime issue. So we don't yet know that you're an Amazon Prime customer. We want to make you a Keep Prime customer, which will include Amazon Prime. So that's a little bit of work we have to do. We're still early, 90 days into the carting thing. So we need to do that for you for sure. We have to give you the same price you would get from the store, never more. And we actually go out and look for coupon codes. We do that annoying retail me not search, so you don't have to, and give you those benefits as well. So we try to give you actually better benefit than you would get if you bought from the store directly. But there's issues to work out. Amazon specifically because of Prime, which is awesome, obviously. Cost of shipping varies with the items. There's lots of stores. Right now, I've heard, I don't know if it's true, 51% of that which gets bought is actually got free shipping. So Nordstrom's is free shipping all the time. Obviously, Zappos made their business. The brilliance of Zappos was, if we give them free shipping on the way back, will they actually buy shoes? Because that was like the dumbest idea. Yeah, right, the dumbest, greatest idea was like, you're going to really buy shoes online? And the answer was, well, if you give them, if you treat people like you treat them at the shoe store where I try on 5 pairs and I then walk out, the answer was yes. So that was, Tony was brilliant because everyone else would have said, that's really stupid.
So I have one quick question. Is this an evolution of AdKeeper?
That's
a quick question.
That's a quick question? Yeah, so since we're entrepreneurs, those of you know, our company, yes, started as AdKeeper. We raised $43 million pre-launch. We signed all the big advertisers, AT&T, Verizon, Coke, and Pepsi, for my bad idea. And my bad idea was that people would time shift advertising, and if they could time shift it, they would use it. What I learned along the way is that people really don't like ads, that my 100-page Nielsen study that said they would do it really wasn't true. So come to me with your research reports and I can shoot holes in it because mine didn't work. And what we did was we realized that people wouldn't keep ads, but would they keep products? And the answer was yeah, because what we did was AdKeeper wasn't, we kept 1 million products. So on AdKeeper. So it was interesting, but not enough to be the business we wanted it to be. So we started to pin ads to Pinterest because our technology would let us do that. We said, rather than put them to AdKeeper, let's experiment. And we pinned ads to Pinterest, kept ads to Pinterest. And guess what? It didn't happen. Nobody wanted to do it. Here's what we discovered. You take a beautiful handbag, and if on top of it you say 20% off till Tuesday, that's an ad. Fuck that. If you show a picture of a beautiful handbag, it gets pinned. There's a very fine line, and frankly what ads are all about is at the top of the funnel to create demand creation, to get it purchased. So we said, you know what, if we could move to the middle of the funnel and just have products, which the objective is, and get those sold, that's a way better business. So, my bad. Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned Pinterest because your site is essentially a curation site with transactions, right? But do you allow people one user to view the other? Curation presupposes that people can look at other people's collections. Do you allow that?
So we have been called, I don't call us that, but we have been called Pinterest for commerce. Pinterest is for recipes and cat photos and anything you want, and it's brilliant. Again, just like I'd rather be Ben Silberman than me because he's worth $5 billion for his business. But you can't buy this stuff. It's so frustrating because Pinterest he created a brilliant open system that lets anybody do anything. Pinterest is one of the great traffic throws to keep. We use it a lot. Everything on Keep is one click away. It used to be one click away from an in-stock shopping cart. Now it's actually in our own. With Pinterest, you never know. So I expect Pinterest will have a bit of a commerce model at some point. They're starting with ads, and we'll see. Pinterest is an awesome product, but by definition, to be as broad and wonderful as it is, it has to have some lack of consistency. Are we done? Yeah. Are we done? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.